So there's kind of two ways to go here on creating an intentional community of some sort. Well, maybe three. I forgot what the third one is at the moment, but I made a note and I had a third one listed. One is to gather really good people together. All your friends, their friends, good people. You like them all. And then you create your intentional community. Oh, I remember the third one now. And you get together and you have immediate conflict. Because just because you're friends doesn't mean you have the same vision of how you should live. You know, unless you've already been living together for a long time, in which case you kind of already have an intentional community. So that will fail every time, and we see dozens of examples of that failing. Lots of them in the 60s with hippies and stuff. You know, we'll just all be good. We'll have natural law. No, you won't. You'll have some people bullying other people, people sleeping around on other people passing diseases around, people screwing each other over financially, people stealing each other's drugs. It's not a good thing. And you can see documentaries about many cases of failed communities. It's like a joke to me. It is absolutely dumb. And I see postings every fucking day on the lists I'm on of people saying, hey, let's all get together and form an intentional community in this place. Everybody's welcome. It'd be great. And it's like, there's never a listing a year later that says it's going great. It falls apart immediately. You have economic differences. You collect people that want to mooch off of others. It's a big mess. The other option is to define the community and what it's going to be, how it's going to work, the rule set, how we're going to treat the land and each other. You discriminate heavily. You have an extreme application process, which I currently am working on, and I'm working with another group that's making one. It's imperfect, but it's coming along. It's icmatch.com, and I actually have a directory of all these other directories of intentional communities. So it's a directory of directories, and I need to check out every one of them. And once I write up a basic plan, post it on every one of them. And then I'm going to have a job to do, because I'm going to have to sort through all these folks, because most of those sites have no matching. And I'm on some sites where people can be totally anonymous. And they can just say, oh, I like your thing. When can I move there? Well, that's not going to happen. I mean, they have to go through a filtering process. And so what I can do is use these different directory sites to point them to a filtering site. And I may have to make that site myself. But somehow I've got to... Which way am I going? Always a decision right here. This determines the rest of my day. Fuck. I have an apple in my backpack I can give to a horse. Would love to do that. One person commented when I was talking about the need for defining it first and then finding the people who like it and fit into it as making total sense. They had a positive response. And they said all startups start out as dictatorships. And I was like, that made me feel better, because I feel pretty fucking weird saying everything's got to be my way. But there is no other way. It's either that or turn it over to the mob of people, many of whom are vampires and zombies, and it's extremely dangerous. Not that it isn't dangerous to trust one person, you know, and I'm not presenting myself as a person with all the answers. In fact, I don't trust the people who are like that. I don't trust spiritual leaders. I don't trust pretty people who claim everything is great. Many of them are wearing a mask to fool you with. Don't trust them. Now, should you trust me? I'm pretty chaotic. I'm wicked smart, that's true. But smartness isn't everything. Kindness matters. I think I'm very kind. But I've been also kind of a pushover sometimes. And that's the wrong kind of kindness. It's not kind long term. If you raise kids, do you want to give them everything they want? Or do you want to toughen them up so that they can actually participate in a more functional world? Well, somewhere in between those two, probably. So those were the first two I thought of. The big dichotomy of gather the people versus gather the vision and then add the people to it who fit in with it. If you do the second, you got rid of 80% of your conflict. You're doing great. The other one is quite valid, and I have a whole video about it. I'll link to it if I remember. And that is just have people move near each other. Pick a spot. Do still pick values that you're collecting people according to, but you may not have to be as strict because you're not co-owning land. Co-owning land is inherently a problem unless you have figured out a way for that to work. Now be really particular. And nobody just gets to buy in. They go and they live there for a year or more. And then they start to get shares and some rights to have any control over it because they fit in with a bunch of people in the community and they aren't having conflicts with people. So just moving to the same place is a really good idea because you don't have to come up with any new legal structures. You do have to, if you move to an existing town, you have to make sure you have very good local relations. If you get a bunch of people together to buy land near each other, a lot of times it's more expensive and there's not a lot of places with individual lots. Now, I have seen housing developments that somebody created the basic layout, always on the grid, always having, planning for sewer and stuff that I'm against. You could just buy an entire started development and then move your people into it. But you could have legal restrictions on being exclusive. Housing rights stuff. And it's like, and people could also buy into it and then sell it to some asshole who doesn't follow the rules. And do we really want to have homeowner agreements, homeowner associations, whatever? We've all heard horror stories about how those turn out. But then again, we want some level of agreements. And we might even want to specify a whole bunch of freedoms so that you can't have somebody take over the homeowners association and start making a bunch of dumbass rules like you can't paint your house purple. Like restrictive agreements that people want to add into the system. Essentially, you're setting up a private government when you do that. And I've read about various forms of that. And many of them, you read about the negative aspects of them. You tend not to read about the ones that work because nobody's that motivated to write about those. But that would be an interesting whole study right there of studying like homeowner associations and go in and catalog as an anthropologist, go in and catalog what works and doesn't work in that particular community. We would learn so much. You could do a whole book just on that. Evaluating home ownership agreements and how they actually shake out in reality. That sounds very useful because that's kind of what I'm trying to do. And in the case of just moving near people, you don't get legal problems. You have people within walking distance. They don't all have to be exactly neighbors, right? If the town was a friendly, welcoming town, you could do that. And I have towns picked out where I think that would work. And, yeah. So I got options, but in my case, I have to lock it down into some decisions. We're going with dictatorship. We're going with me needing to define that really well, making larger overarching principles, and then breaking those down into implementations and examples to make sure the philosophy continues. And that's to serve people. I do not want to control it all. And that would get me out of it, because I'm going to die. I won't be a dictator for very long. I mean, I am gray and I've already almost died, and I'm at major risk. So that's a good thing for you trusting that this thing could actually function. Now, will people be willing to invest into a community that they don't have control over? I don't know. At first, they can just be having a really good time, but we can't start a party community. Somebody's got to be investing enough so that we're putting that into infrastructure. And so there are communities that are like that, and people pay a lot to go to them. People pay $10,000 for a 4-day workshop, you know, because they got a lot of money. There are plenty of people out there with lots of money. And what I've been talking to mostly is people with none. And that's very frustrating, because I can't say yes to tons and tons of people to come live for free. That does not work. I already did it. It wasn't tons and tons, but it was a lot. There used to be a community called The Farm in Tennessee, and that still exists. But I think it was during the 70s sometime. I think their leader was John Bascom. And pretty cool guy, probably. Didn't seem to piss people off too much. And they got like 1,500 hippies together. And they had all the usual problems. You know, sex, drugs, crimes, interpersonal conflicts, infidelity. I have not studied it in detail, but all the normal problems. 1,500 people. Doesn't that sound fun? It does. 1,500 people. Except it was totally not sustainable. And they had to go through this probably horrible process of going down to 150 people. The ones that were actually contributing and making it function. Well, that means that there was, you know, well over 1,000 other people who were probably pissed off that they lost their hippie paradise. They felt betrayed because everything was free and nice, and, you know, or maybe they got out of there and were like, wow, that was fucked up. And now they still exist, and they have businesses, and they're actually an example of a community that survived. But they had to go through that maturation process of realizing, no, we can't just welcome the entire world. No, we're not here as a charity for anyone who needs help. We cannot survive that way. And so I've gotten hardcore about that. And even with the couple I'm talking to now, I want to make sure they have enough money to leave. But that's barely good enough. Like, should I be charging them rent? I definitely want them to pay for their own survival. And one of the first tasks, actually, is tracking where the money goes. Some of it's not super easy to track. Like, if I buy a big tank of propane, it doesn't run out right away. I can get 6 months off a tank of propane, you know? And so, things like solar. Like, are they going to want to invest a bunch into a solar power system, but they're not even quite sure if they want to stay longer than a month? Because they do need to check it out for their own security and their own safety, their own investment. Does it make sense for them? No, probably not. So am I able to actually have the social value and interest enough people in the project so that I could actually raise money up enough to probably get 2 real solar power systems, probably meaning like 5,000 watts each. That's a lot of power. There is a cable run between those buildings too, so we could kind of load balance those to some degree. We could have diversion loads to go charge the other one, and then each one could have their own diversion loads for other stuff. Starting the housing program sounds like it'd be cheap, and I think once it's running it will be, because it could have a pretty high cost on it. It could be the best, mostly natural building program in the world. I'm an ambitious guy. And by charging a lot, that would allow us to do things others can't do. But of course, a lot of people in natural building want to make sure it costs them nothing or close to it, which is a fundamental problem I also face. There's a lot of people who actually care about the future of this planet, don't have a lot of money. If you're really rich, you're busy making more money and growing your investments, and you don't really have to care about the future of the planet, you think. And some of those folks are waking up, and they're realizing we're in dire straits. Things are not looking good for the future of the world. My pet horse, it's not mine, is not here. Oh, it's too bad. I have an apple. Really want to give this apple to that horse. So more and more people are waking up. And those are folks who are well off, and they might be very happy to donate what for them is a small amount and what for me is a huge amount. And I can start building more housing. I can hire the team of builders. I can then offer students the ability to come and learn how to build. And then as I have more housing, I have more space for longer term residents and shorter term ones, and specialized spaces and more composting toilets, a solar sauna, a whole room size solar dehydrator, somebody who's focused on just planting food. A lot of people think, oh, I can go there and I can just garden. And it's like, well, gardens are a big investment. They take time. It can take years to really develop the soil, and especially with perennials, which is mainly what I care about. You know, those perennials might take 6, 7, 8 years to mature. It depends, you know, like I plant nut trees. I probably won't see the fruit of those in my lifetime. That's long-term investment. And that's where you get your best win. But of course, I need things that work shorter term, to produce money now. So crowdfunding, grants, having some programs potentially once we have base infrastructure. I have a long list of types of workshops we could run, some of which are purely frivolous and fun, very attractive to people, some of which are world-changing and important, some of which change people's lives on an individual level. So there are options there. Not willing to go for the whole spiritual bullshit. Lots of money in spiritual bullshit, because you offer people nothing. You offer them a placebo, a feel-good philosophy, you know, that builds them up and says, you're so wonderful, you have inherent value and all this shit. No, you don't have inherent value. Your value is in what you produce, how you serve other people, how you serve the earth. Different whole attitude. So I'm not going to go for the easy money. I almost see it like selling spiritual stuff is like selling drugs. You know, it's high profit margin and no long-term benefit. And sometimes a lot of risk too, because the kind of people you gather that are spiritual are kind of damaged people. They're not rational, so they're dangerous. Well, that's some thoughts for you as you think of the many reasons why you should completely avoid me in this place. Or when I'm saying to you, seems like, wow, that's a hardcore real plan, not some hippy dippy bullshit. Maybe there's a chance this thing could actually work. Maybe we can have faith in it, trust in it, whatever. I don't know. I'm not sure what'll happen. I'm not sure what the next year will bring, but I can't keep waiting. I can't keep stalling. And the people that are talking to me now about wanting to come here are making me motivated to define how that can work. Get me from no to yes. Get from just partying in the woods to having a really amazing creative space that can finance itself and finance an even better future. Yarr. That's all motivational and shit there. Impressive, huh?